They lose to the Pistons in the first round and Jalen Brunson's back. That's disastrous end to the year. Assume they win that series. You're going to play the Celtics in the second round. Now, what's realistic to expect? A long, tough, competitive series in which you lose is as far as this season is going. They're not going to beat the Boston Celtics. But look, if that's a sweep or a 5-game series, that also, to me, is a disastrous end to the year.
You move Cat. I mean, you bring Cat in, you move Julius Randle, you move DiVincenzo. You make those moves. You sell your soul a little bit, Tibbs, because you're a defensive guy, but you bring in more offense. You do that because you want to win a championship. I'm looking at Detroit, and I'm saying this could be a first-round exit for New York.
So I just got done watching ESPN's segment on the New York Knicks. You guys are basically getting my live reaction. I saw it 5 seconds ago. I'm just not shocked because if you guys have been following ESPN, they talk about us every single day. But the problem is they don't talk about us being the 3rd seed in the East, being one of the best teams in basketball. We've got a top 5 record in the league, and you'd think that we've got a bottom 5 with the way that this network talks about us. I think this is good for the Knicks, though, because I can promise you guys, promise you that Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, and these boys are seeing everything that they're saying. And when they go up against the Boston Celtics in the second round, which is going to happen as Cleveland is not being caught, they're going to have extra motivation. And in terms of Jalen Brunson's ankle, I couldn't tell you guys if it's going to be fully healthy because I'm not a doctor. But at the same time, I mean, even if Brunson is a little hobbled, it's still Jalen Brunson. We saw what he was able to do last year in the playoffs against Philly, putting up numbers that hadn't been seen since Michael Jeffrey Jordan. And I'm sure he wasn't even close to 100%. Brunson endured a lot of pain, a lot of stress throughout the course of the regular season, and he still came ready to go against a tough Philly team, too, that would have beaten a lot of other teams in the first round. Like, they weren't just on typical... what were they, the 7th seed? We were the 2 seed, right? So they were the 7th seed at the time. They were a really good 7th seed. You don't see as many as them. In terms of the Detroit Pistons, I watched a little bit of them this year. It's going to be competitive. They've got a very good team. But thinking we're going to lose to them, it's the same crap, the same BS as last year. I mean, we were never losing to Philly, even though it was close. I mean, Donte DiVincenzo, of course, hitting that game-winning 3. Josh Hart hitting a game-winning 3. I mean, we were a couple of missed threes away from potentially, who knows, like losing that series. But it's going to be the same thing with Detroit. Is the media is going to pick against us. We're going to win, and then they're going to say, well, you're the 3 seed. You should have won that, right? Even though they picked against us. And then against the Celtics, they're going to give us no chance. But something that is definitely going to be missed, what Udonis Haslem said. Tim Legler will be in the thumbnail. I actually really do like Tim Legler a lot. I like Udonis Haslem a lot. I mean, it's their opinions. They know a lot about basketball, too. Of course, they had good long careers in the NBA, something that I never came close to, unfortunately. Only made my way to college basketball. The Knicks didn't draft me, sadly, but I'm joking. Well, not really, but in all seriousness, though. So looking at what Udonis Haslem said, he talked about how the Knicks, they traded away Donte DiVincenzo. They did not re-sign Isaiah Hartenstein, and they trade for Cat, and that move was to win a championship, and it absolutely was. And I still believe that trade for Cat brought our ceiling a lot higher in terms of winning a championship. If we still had Donte and Isaiah and didn't have Cat, I think we'd be better right now, but I don't think we'd have a better chance to beat Boston. That might sound stupid. It kind of sounds stupid me saying that aloud, but I'm talking about seriously locking into a Game 7 series. Cat, with what we've seen him at his best this year, I mean, a 15-0 run last game, of course, against the Miami Heat. I just think we have a better chance of beating the Celtics with Cat because of how good he is. But it doesn't have to be this season. Like, who says the Knicks need to win the championship this year? Why can't they win it next year, or the year before that, or the year after that? Like, it's going to take some time as this team continues to develop chemistry and continuity. The Cavs and the Celtics, they've been together for years. I mean, sure, they've had pieces in. We saw, like, DeAndre Hunter get traded at the deadline to the Cavs, and in terms of the Celtics, what's a move that they've made? I mean, that's the thing, is I can't even really recall. Like, maybe it's Kate. I don't know if he was there last year. I can't even recall a move that the Celtics have necessarily made because it's just the same team. Yeah, just give the Knicks some time here. I do think that the Knicks were a tougher, more physical team last season. I thought they had just overall more versatility because of how elite they were at rebounding the basketball and how elite they were defensively. But I just don't think last year's team had enough firepower, enough of that it factor to be able to win a championship, man. I thought that it was a fun Knicks team, and it literally embodied a 90s Knicks team with that grit and grind type of mentality. But Brunson and Cat and OG and Mikal, if these guys are at their best in the playoffs, not only do they have a chance against Boston or Cleveland, we're beating those teams. It's just going to come down to Tibbs and can he drop his ego and make adjustments. There's a clip that I want to show you guys of basically Josh Hart against the Warriors calling out head coach Tom Thibodeau because the Warriors, they put a zone on the Knicks and New York didn't score a single point on it all night. I mean, not that they did a lot. I mean, it was like 6 times or something. They didn't run it a lot, but every single time they did, the Knicks had no answer, and they were without Jalen Brunson, albeit. But still, and don't even get me started on the drop coverage. So if Tibbs just makes adjustments, goes deep into his bench, and trusts those guys, the Knicks have a chance, right? Even if we lose in 4 games to the Celtics, it doesn't really mean that much compared to if we lose in 6 games. Like, to some Knicks fans, it does. But it's a loss, right? Like, we didn't win the championship. We still lost at the Celtics. So if the Knicks get swept, then they have to come back and they have to upgrade the roster. And if they lose in 6, they still have to upgrade the roster, right? So if the Knicks do get swept, would they be a little bit more drastic? I mean, I'm sure. Like, maybe all of a sudden they want Kevin Durant. They lose in 6 or 7. They're like, we're 1 piece away. We're our DeAndre Hunter away from winning a championship, from beating this team. And if the Knicks can beat the Celtics, they can beat anyone, right? Like, if the Knicks beat the Celtics, I don't see why they wouldn't beat the Cavs and they wouldn't beat, let's say, I don't know, like the OKC. Well, maybe that's a stretch. If we do beat the Celtics and we beat the Cavs, it's not to say we're beating the Thunder. I mean, I'd love to say that. Like, it's not really that true. That would be one of the greatest playoff runs ever. Like, that might be the greatest playoff run ever. I mean, the Mavs one was kind of cool when they had Dirk, I guess. But I mean, we're talking about, are you kidding me? The Celtics and the Cavs and the Thunder. I mean, that's ridiculous. I don't know if a team's ever beaten. And not to mention the Pistons in the first round. I don't think a team's ever had like a playoff run beating those significant of teams. But that seems like a huge stretch right now because the Knicks, they do just have to get into the playoffs healthy. And then, of course, they're going to have to find a way to beat the Pistons and then go from there. But yeah, I just wanted to talk to you guys about what ESPN had to say the other day about our Knicks because I just completely disagree. I do think the Celtics and the Cavs are better than us. I don't think it's by as much as people think. I do believe that's going to be a close competitive series, and I wouldn't be surprised, and a lot of Knicks fans are not going to agree with me, and that's fine, but I wouldn't be surprised if, let's say, the Celtics win the first 2 games in Boston, TD Garden, and then we win the next 2 games in New York. And then, sure, maybe they win the next 2 and beat us in 6 games, but I just think we're going to protect our home court. We saw last season what home court meant to the Knicks. That just crowd noise got this team going. Like, Game 7, we should have lost by 50 against the Pacers with all the injuries and things like that. The Knicks got down big early on, but then they came back and made it a close game. It was like a 2-point game, like near halftime or whatever. Long time ago, almost a year ago, but still, I mean, this Knicks crowd's going to be absolutely roaring. And the Knicks, as of right now, I mean, sure, Jalen Brunson's missing with an ankle injury. Mitch Robinson's back. That's it, though, isn't it? I mean, Brunson's the only guy that's injured right now, or at least that's not playing. And he's going to come back. I'm hoping that the Knicks keep him out as close to the playoffs as possible. I don't want them to keep him out to the playoffs and bring him back in the first round. That just seems like a little bit like ridiculous. I hope they bring him back towards the end of the regular season, let him get a couple of games, get back in game shape, and then here's the playoffs. But I don't want the Knicks to rush him back early because if we're being honest, the Knicks losing games doesn't even matter. I mean, yeah, like if the Knicks sort of like, it's impossible, but if the Knicks were to fall down to like the 8th seed, have to play in the play-in or something like that, like, yeah, that's a disaster. But in terms of like being the 4th or the 5th seed, I mean, does that really matter? I don't think it does. Yeah, your first round opponent's going to be a little bit more difficult than the Pistons, but that doesn't even matter. Like, I know the Knicks are going to get to the first round. The question is, what are they going to do in the second round? So, but yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, man. It's your boy Knicks Daily. I'm about to sign out. Peace.